It's March 8, 2022. Good morning. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to today's edition of the program AM Prime. It's International Women's Day today, and the entire program is dedicated to that. We're treating with issues having to do with women in Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean, and the wider world in the course of the next hour and a half. Among them, we will be talking with Delisa Blizzard. She's a physical education and sport officer at the Ministry of Sport and Community Development. And they have something they call Girls Run TT. And matters having to do with that. We'll talk with her in the second hour of the program. Also, we're talking with the Honorable Madam Justice Maureen Rajnaut Lee. She's a member of the team at the Caribbean Court of Justice, and they have a program, a pioneering Caribbean women's jurists. We'll talk with her about that. Of course, we share with you the staples, the COVID numbers, and the rest of that. In our midst, we have the watch list. We'll take you around the region with some stops in countries in our region here on this Tuesday morning. But right now, as we say, International Women's Day, we're talking with the president of the Human Resource Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Cavell Joseph Centromere, and the vice president, Natalie Jackman Eibel. They're talking about a program they organize called Break the Bias. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Andy.
Good to see you. Well, Cavell, you want to go first? Let's talk about what this is. There are some things that I would like to share with you. Well, I picked up some stuff in doing some work on this. Somebody said that Caribbean women need they need true equality in employment and compensation, as well as in leadership and other things I want to tease your minds about. But let's talk about this. What is meant by breaking the bias?
Well, that's the International Women's Day campaign theme, and breaking the bias requires all of us to imagine a world that is gender equal, a world free of bias, stereotypes, discrimination, a world that is diverse, equitable, and inclusive, a world where difference is valued and celebrated and is not how we treat it in these times. Together, we can forge women's equality, we can collectively break the barriers, and individually, we all are required through our own actions all day, every day, to break the bias we see in our communities, in our workplaces, in our schools, our universities, in every space we come and we encounter it. Together on this International Women's Day, the campaign theme and the call is for us to break the bias, and we know it exists even within ourselves. And once you recognize it, that we require that you work on it, on changing that. So it's really to bring awareness to the gender bias that women face every single day in all walks of life.
Yeah, well, let me bring you in, Ms. Jackman Eibel, because I'm looking at a letter to the editor written by Dr. Margaret Naked Chattu. She's one of the prominent psychologists in the country, and that's the headline on the article here: "Break the Bias Against Women." And she's saying that we should focus on that. So, what you have to add to that?
Well, at the end of the day, it's all about, in the case of organizations, it's all about business. It's good business. When an organization hires a woman, it's not for fun. It's because they think that she has the skills. I mean, they could have hired anyone, but it would have meant that their process highlighted this specific person who had the skills, right? So the idea is, think about it as a good business decision, and you want to having made that decision, you want to maximize the value. So what you want to do is remove as many hurdles, unnecessary ones. There will be business hurdles, of course, but that's what it should be. Business hurdles and not bias hurdles. And the fact of the matter is, research shows that women do face and some additional barriers that create challenges for them in terms of delivering that value to a business. So it is in the business interest, or in an organization's interest, in our relationships' interest, to remove those unconscious sometimes, conscious at other times, bias that creates problems in delivering the value you could really get out of women.
Yeah, can you point to some specifics as to where you, either of you, we could start with you and then come back to Cavell on that, where you see obvious bias, whether they are, as you say, conscious or unconscious?
Okay, so this is our first program. It's going to help us identify those biases that we have now become very accustomed to. And by the way, women have biases as well. But it's going to help us identify those biases that we have become so accustomed to that many times we just dismiss them. I have done it in the past in my career. One of them would be, for example, during recruitment. There's a tendency to believe that certain jobs men are better suited to. And that's not me. That's the research that is saying that. It's one of the most common biases that you assume, it's a stereotype. You assume that a woman is supposed to be soft and family oriented, not career oriented. A big one is assertiveness. If you're assertive, you're taken to be headstrong and difficult, and that the research is showing as well. So those are just two common ones. They're unconscious. Women have those perspectives as well, by the way, right? Because a lot of recruiters are in fact women now.
Yeah. Kavil, I learned a long time ago in some sociology class, something like that, in school in Toronto. The roots of the term hysterical, when you describe somebody as hysterical, that's the kind of bias. Because if you break the word into what it means, where it comes from, I had to learn that. So to call somebody hysterical, you're telling them that they're behaving like a woman. That's correct, right?
Well, yes, in addition to much more emotional,
yeah.
You having your periods now. You get these other comments in the workspace that signals the minute you respond, and you respond in a particular manner, that you're being extremely feminine and emotional. The same way the concept of the angry Black woman. The minute a woman is assertive and expresses herself, you're given all these names. You assign all these. It's almost like a target in the workspace. And the fact is, we need to embrace what women bring in terms of the difference in style of leadership, in terms of how we analyze, how we confront issues, and how we deal with conflict, which is something that there's a distinct difference between how a man would deal with it versus how a woman would deal with it. But it doesn't make her emotional or touchy-feely or any of those things. It's a matter that there's a style that will say of most of us that we like to address issues head on and prefer to communicate and work things out. And that is just a style. And it's a style that should be embraced in terms of what we bring to the table, just the same. Now, Natalie shared about hiring. You also see it with succession planning and how you manage a talent pipeline. And the fact is, there are people targeted for CEO roles or for VP or for leadership positions, and they are groomed and mentored with any workspace for it. And sometimes women are left out of that. They're left out of the networking opportunities when men sit around the table and determine who is going to be next and for what role or who will get an international assignment. So there's an over-focus on hiring and representation and not necessarily looking at how the talent pipeline is being managed effectively that will allow for women to advance just the same and to champion them towards success as well. Because men have their champions in the workspace, even in performance management, which is another hidden area where gender bias could potentially be harmful. How your performance is assessed. And Andy said historical, so you may find even on a performance appraisal, sometimes can be too emotional, and all these things hinder your progress when you get a bad performance assessment that is rooted and is a deep-rooted bias that exists in terms of how it's even written up by your direct supervisor as well.
All right.
So these are some challenges.
All right. So Natalie, let's respond to this. This I'm looking at a page in the Express newspaper this morning. The headline is Minister hails TNT's strides in women's rights. And the story begins by saying that in the 65 years since it has celebrated International Women's Day, Trinidad and Tobago has witnessed strides in women's legal rights, education, representation in public. That's the statement from the minister responsible for those matters, Ayanna Webster Roy. You concur with that?
Well, there have been strides, and that has to be recognized. However, the reality is that even recent research is showing that there are barriers. So women work in a matrix. Everyone has a matrix that they work in with a number of obstacles, but there are still additional hurdles, and as I said, unnecessary ones that need to be overcome. And the issue is beyond rights. The basic thing is not even about rights. It's about making sensible decisions around value and what people could bring, So as I said, you don't bring a woman into a workplace or into an association or into a group just because she's a woman. She came in to make a contribution and you felt that she was able to do so. So what changes once she's there? So as long as we keep that at the forefront, then the issue of rights doesn't even become an issue, right? Because everyone is being allowed to develop, to grow, to participate, to contribute in a way that, and by the way, gender is not the only bias that women and others face. We face all the other biases. And when they're complicated, when they're multiple, so you're a woman, you're a mother, you are from a different origin, you might be an immigrant, let's say. All of these complicate things even more, and it becomes even more difficult to face. So actually, any woman in a workplace is actually doing much better than given the conditions under which she's working.
All right. And the Public Transport Service Corporation spotted itself on the back this morning. There's a full-page ad in the paper, which highlights 13 women who are either members of the board or in what is seen by them as significant positions in the organization. 13 women at the PTSC.
Well, if you examine the data in Trinidad and Tobago, and as you've rightly said, in terms of what the minister said earlier, there's more representation in terms of numbers. And Trinidad and Tobago has been doing well in terms of our achievements in politics, where we had the first female prime minister. We now have a sitting president who is a woman. When we examine the House of Representatives and the Senate, we see again the president of the Senate, the leader of the House, a woman, and also you could tell from the numbers of the MPs that we've done well. There's progress there. When we examine state boards, we see more women chairing boards. We see more women on state boards and private sector boards. And even in the private sector, some of our major conglomerates have women in CEO. I see Massey Group in the newspaper. They're celebrating their women as well who are CEOs. So yes, in terms of data, we have been seeing progress. In terms of the lower echelons now, there's several issues as it relates to even pay equity, in terms of the skills, in terms of some of the challenges, as Natalie was saying earlier, that women face. So yes, there's progress, but we have to look at what's beyond that. We also have to look at the cliff now, right? And sometimes women are set up to fail, and there's a real trio of the cliff. So you find, although we have numbers, what the numbers reflect, what have been the woman's experiences. So it's not only about numbers, but it's all about also mapping the experiences of women who are given roles just to say that they're given roles, tokenism, but in terms of getting the resources, the support of the boards and the executive team, getting the resources to succeed in the role, that's another story as well. And almost in some instances, and there's a Forbes report, there are a few reports coming out, but it's almost like you're set up to fail in some instances as well.
All right, so this quote comes from, okay, you wanted to say something, Natalie? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, and the statistics would say that we have done well in terms of putting women into leadership, but it doesn't mean that the gender bias goes away. They are operating beyond what they're required to because of gender bias, and should be recognized even more as a result. It does not disappear once you've achieved those positions. In fact, it may increase.
How do you pinpoint and notice and take note of gender bias?
Well, as I mentioned, there are a number of studies that actually identify these things. It's not a secret. There are a number of small day-to-day things, little statements that people make that indicate it. And in fact, our first workshop is going to be able to help you to identify some of those simple things. But there are a number of research reports around. And if you look closely at the woman, you'll see them react. If you look at their body language, you'll see them react. And it's one of two. Either you see it visibly in a flinch or something, or they look spaced out because they are now filtering it out so that they could operate.
Yeah.
But Andy, there's also diversity, equity, and inclusion technology, which is new to the workspace, that helps improve diversity within organizations by allowing discoverability, enrichment, and actionability based on demographic data. So through this technology, it allows businesses to assemble diversity data. It allows you to measure your progress and to control and reduce bias and to expand your diverse talent pipeline and run inclusion programs within your organizations for your team. So through technology, there's technology to assist as well, and products that are developed now to assist businesses with these challenges that they face and to help reduce bias in the workspace.
Which of you would want to comment on what you think may have been the pros and the cons of thus far the first woman we had as Prime Minister? Did she do the cause good? Or to what extent?
Well, just by that question alone, because nobody asked a man if he did the cause good, I just find those things a bit offensive, to be honest, because why we always have to be measured at a different standard? Why it always says, oh, she did well for a woman, she represented us well for a woman. Why that has to be added? Why it can't be that she did well? We have had men who made significant errors and mistakes in leadership. We've had the same thing with prime ministers, male prime ministers, who have, when they track history. So even by that question, at the end of the day, it should be celebrated whether she had challenges or not during her tenure. And she could have been challenged by her own cabinet and face the same biases given the challenges women in leadership face in general. So to me, it's something you just celebrate, you acknowledge it, we've done it. And I even hear people saying, oh, not another woman again to be given a chance. But why?
Well, that's the point.
I find those statements to be highly offensive.
Yeah, well, that's the point. And so to me, she got a lot of assessment based on people seeing her as a woman and what they expected and what they didn't expect, how she should have behaved, how she should have performed, and so on. So
yes, everything from her dress. I remember for one carnival, people criticized the fact that she wore boots to an event, right? So how you dress, your hair, everything is given scrutiny, but nobody says, oh, look, this man wearing this black suit. He had on this black suit last week. Nobody says that of a man. Yeah. But a dress is repeated as a problem. How your hair is a problem. How you look, how you behave. Whether you dance, you didn't dance. Whether you drink, you didn't drink. Yes, and we've had men behave in the exact same way, and they've not been subjected to the same level of criticism. So it really solidifies what Natalie is saying on her end. And at the end of the day, that is why Hermat now is saying, let us look beyond the glass ceiling. Yes, we had a first female prime minister. Yes, that should be celebrated. But what happened next? Beyond that, what has happened? What support did this woman receive? So on Friday, the 11th of March, we have our tea with Hermat. And the theme is exactly that, beyond the glass ceiling. Let us examine from these four CEOs' experiences now, what has happened, how they've been champions for women, how they broke barriers, and how they influenced and how they brought other women up. So all these things are necessary, just the same. So on Friday, Andy, which I would like to talk a bit about now, we do have four incredible women, Hyacinth Guy, Lara Crenshaw Thomas, Maxine Barnett, and Jane White, all CEOs in their respective right, running organizations and coming out of HR, which is another bias that exists because people have the perception that HR cannot be CEO and that we shouldn't even seek to prepare ourselves for that role, which I find even funny because who understands the people better and the systems? So why not given an opportunity? Why is it always finance or operations? So we're seeing these women doing their thing, and we want to hear their stories and prepare the next level of leaders now to prepare for those kind of roles, even within their organizations. The panel is being moderated by Jessime Vento, and that's happening Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. via Zoom. And Natalie can share about the Practitioners Learning Network that is happening on the 9th of March and on the 16th of March, where we have, again, two powerful women coming to share with us and to help, again, empower our members and those who attend. We do have Angela Leloy, who kicks things off on the 9th, and Sharon Christopher on the 16th of March. And we end the month, not the year, my apologies, with our HR Leaders Forum. But Natalie can give a lot more details on those events, but we are celebrating International Women's Day throughout the whole month. So it's a month of celebrations, but really poignant questions and challenging our members and our and those who attend to be better and what we need. What are the tools we need to equip us to do better and to be better in our respective roles? Right, so the matter is saying, come and listen, come and learn, and eventually lead.
Right, so March 9th is tomorrow.
March 9th is tomorrow, yes, Andy. And as Pavel said, because this is important, we want everyone and all organizations to achieve the maximum potential. It's about performance at the end of the day, right? So because of that, we have a program. It's not just talk. We have a program of learning. This is the purpose of the Practitioner Learners Network. It's about improving the professionalism and the competence of, and also care of people, personnel in organizations, right? It's not restricted to human resource personnel only. But so tomorrow, we're having our first workshop. It's about how gender bias holds women back. And as I said, we're going to be exploring those small day-to-day things that indicate gender bias, what actions we could take, and it's a research-based program. It's a learning program that practitioners and all other interested persons will really benefit from. All right? On the 16th, we're going a little deeper. We're going to look at cases now where empowered women took action. And this is important for the people, practitioners in particular, because they will learn. Some time ago, in your speaking to Cavell, she had mentioned that many HR people stumble across HR and don't proactively decide that they're going to be in HR. So we're trying to help bring people up to scratch and give them scenarios. So this is a learning network, adult learning again. So it's going to be very interactive. And then for our advocacy program, we're actually trying to add to the body of knowledge around discrimination. So we're going to be running a survey, and we hope everyone helps us collect this data. And we're going to be looking on the 23rd at what this data is saying really about what gender bias really looks like. And we know it exists, right? We know that the university has done studies on gender and so on, but we want to look at what we feel we could get a little additional detail. We want to see what our data is saying. And it's not just about being on a crusade. It's about being practical, using this data to help make decisions so that organizations can maximize the value. And remember, this is the HR fraternity. So what better place than to do this? It's really heavily loaded with women now. So it is an important place to get this activity going. So that's the lineup, Andy, and we look forward to everybody participating.
All right, well, our thanks to both of you, Natalie Jackman-Eibel and Cavell Joseph St. Omer. That's a good way to kick it off. We take a break, we come back with some of the staples, the COVID numbers and the Newsday poll and the responses to those as we go forward on this International Women's Day 2022. Thank you very much.
Break the bias. Break the bias. Break the bias. When will we ever be enough? Is it when hate no longer spreads faster than love? Why is different something that separates us? Why can we not be accepted as us? Our differences are precious, sacred, so earth connected. Expressing your own individuality should be respected. In all places on earth, wherever people exist. Do you see where we are going wrong? What we have missed? What are you doing to break the bias? What are you doing to stop the injustice? When a woman or girl is seen as too much, too bold as such, judged by the colour of her skin for being too overpowering, when showering her voice against the thunder that roars, that echo that screams and all one can ever see is a misconceived perception. Making judgments when you have never tasted discrimination or hate. Never felt the fire burn in your soul when every pathway is another locked gate. Because you're seen as different, and different is always attached to reactions, with no justification for one's actions, for one's cold response. Different. We are women of different seasons, winter and some dancing into spring. Flowers unapologetically blossoming. in the gardens we choose to grow. The only difference that divides us is the ignorance and hate that people show. We are one of the same roots that grow from decades of ancestral generations, weave together through the strands of women that live amongst us. Those who have travelled through the puddles of their own tears and separation. We have to break the bias so no more generations have to face the brutality of discrimination. We have to be the voice of reason, the action of change. Breaking the chains so no woman or girl has to suffer the injustice of this world. We have to break the bias. What are you doing to break the bias? What are you doing?
All right, so let's get some of this out of the way this morning as we come back to the program. I'll just tell you what's on the front pages of the Newsday. This is the Newsday Tobago. That's the front page. And this is the back page. We'll get to the Newsday Trinidad and Tobago. This is the front page. And this is the back page. So that takes care of that. The Newsday Trinidad and Tobago and the Newsday Tobago. That's what they're looking at on this Tuesday morning. Well, let's look at the numbers now, the COVID-19 in our midst, where we are with the figures, the totally recovered patients, the number of people in hospital, and the rest of that list that you've become accustomed to over the period since we're dealing with this March 12, 2020. We'll get to that. 104,803, that's the totally recovered patients. 22,070, the number of active positive cases in our midst. 3,665, that's the death toll thus far. 130,532, the total active cases reported in the country since March 12, 2020 to yesterday. 132, that's the new positive cases reported in the last 24 hours, and 252 as a matter of fact. 252, that's the patients in hospitals at the moment. And that number keeps going down bit by bit. And they say in that trade, that is as positive as you could get. There's some light there. Not necessarily at the end of the tunnel yet, but getting there. So those are the numbers, which we showed you what's on the paper today. Let's go to the Newsday poll. And the question is, do you agree with the UNC that PARIA board must resign even before the investigation into the divers' deaths is completed? And here are some of the responses to that. Yes, how can they still be in the job while an investigation is going on? Conflict of interest cause all the heads controlling the paperwork is like you're leaving ants to watch sugar. All right, that's response number one. Let's see what the second response is saying here. Yes, they can be allowed to have access to records and possibly tamper with the evidence. That possibility will compromise any likelihood of a fair investigation. And there's one word about, one sentence, about 6 words in that case. Kick them out. They're taking too long. Next response. They should not resign. They should be suspended pending investigation and held accountable for the death of those 4 divers. And the final response is a bit longer. Just using this as political propaganda to get rid of the Speaker of the House husband. Who the hell resigns before the facts? There are more factors besides PARIA involved here, but nobody wants to have that conversation because we are so politically and emotionally blinded and everybody protecting their own. But it's easy for the government to take the fall. So those are the responses to the question. The question is, do you agree with the UNC that the PARIA board must resign even before the investigation into the divers' deaths is completed? Well, we're continuing with our theme this morning, As we mark International Women's Day, we're joined now by a member of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Justice Maureen Rajdat Lee. She's a judge as well as co-editor of a publication called Pioneering Women Justice Jurists, and that's what we want to talk about this morning. Pioneering Caribbean Women Jurists. Justice, good morning. Good to have you.
Good morning, Andy. I trust you're hearing me well.
Yes, very well. Very well.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to be here. And good morning to you, your staff, your team, and to all of Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean, all who are looking on. And happy International Women's Day to all women across the world. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, you want to just elaborate on how your sentiments and your feelings on it before we get into the project about the publication that you've put out about pioneering women jurists. We'll get to that in a moment. But how do you look at things in Trinidad and Tobago on this question of people talking about gender equity and the right place for women in society?
Yes, thanks for that, Andy. And if you would allow me to go back a while in my life. In 1972, I had just finished my advanced level examinations, and I lived with my parents and an aunt and family members in Woodbrook. And I remember there was such a stir in the house. My mother, Rita Rajnath, and my aunt, Dorothy Weeks, two women who have passed on. My mother passed on last year, the blessed age of 100 years. And they were just so excited because for the first time in Trinidad and Tobago, a woman was to be a judge, a woman from Barbados, Justice Marie Elizabeth Bourne Hollins. I don't know if you remember that name, Andy.
I can't.
But there was so much excitement at my home. You would think that my mother and aunt had been very educated, but they had received very little formal education. In fact, my mother left school in Standard 3. And so it brought great joy to them. And they even said to me, as a young girl, I heard, imagine, Maureen, a woman could become a judge. And fast forward so many years. Andy, when I came as a young lawyer, and after having done the University of the West Indies, CAFIL, and having gone through law school, the Heward Law School, and I entered the profession of law, there were few women on the bench, very few. I do recall, and just preparing for this interview, I started to think back of the old days, Justice Jean Permanand, Justice Margot Warner, Justice Ernestine Seeley. Those were the women on the bench when I practiced as an attorney. And if we, as I say, fast forward to today, many wonderful women on the bench, many wonderful women in Trinidad and Tobago doing a lot of good work, not just in law, not just as a judge, but in every sphere of life. And what I want to say, though, in answer to your question, is that yes, we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go. We have many sisters we need to see come forward and shine and find their place in society. And that the work of women, Andy, more than anything else, will be treasured, it will be recognized, it will be honored. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, certainly, I was looking up some things last evening in preparation for these discussions, and I saw somebody saying somewhere, there's an organization who's talking about women and girls should be included in urban planning because it has been found out that they have proven to design spaces and systems that work better for everyone.
That is so true. And not just in urban planning, Andy, in every sphere. I believe that many have said that when women are involved in decision making, the decision made is so much better because we bring a different perspective. In the same way that a woman is doing something and a man brings a perspective which is needed, when society is making important decisions, women's voices must be heard because that improves every aspect of our lives. When a woman's life is improved, Andy, woman's life is improved, the rest of the family is improved. So I'm excited to be here on this very special day for women around the world.
Yeah, you don't have to respond to this, but just some of what you just said there sort of provokes me to at least put it out there that you think there should have been women prominent in this disaster that we're dealing with now with the pariah fuels and so on. You don't necessarily have to answer.
It's so sad, Andy. My heart breaks for all those who have suffered through this. But I think you know better than that as a judge, I can say very little
Precisely.
on this very, very hard topic.
Precisely. I just was sort of being a little provocative there, or trying to be. But let's let's come to the issue with pioneering Caribbean women jurists. Let's talk about that.
Yes, thank you, Andy. About 2 years ago, Justice Anderson invited me to co-chair a project that we call the Pioneering Caribbean Women Jurists. How could we honor women who were originally lawyers and then use law as a platform to excel, to serve their people, their region? And what eventually happened is that we decided, and it worked out, that we have 3 components to this project. First of all, as you mentioned, there is the book, Pioneering Caribbean Women Jurists, highlighting the stories of 34 of these remarkable women. So that is one aspect, Andy, and that was, as you may be aware, it was launched last year. Last October was the virtual book launch. And we have received such wonderful commendations. We've been really encouraged by the comments that have been made about the book. The book, the women, let me talk about them. They're women from all spheres, all disciplines. We have heads of state, heads of government, those who served in the judiciary, in the public service, in the corporate world, those who were part of regional and international organizations. And so that was the first aspect, the book. Secondly, we have been doing, Andy, 10 videos, producing 10 videos on the lives of these women. And we really do hope that the media across the Caribbean, Andy, will be interested in these videos, because we would love to get them disseminated far and wide. And so I hope we'll be hearing from WESN on that score. And then, of course, thirdly, and let me come to this aspect, which is what we celebrate today, International Women's Day. Today is our virtual awards ceremony, where in a glamorous and virtual world, we celebrate the lives of these 34 women. And I can tell you more about that later.
Yeah, well, in fact, I will come to it, but let me just make mention of this, that this evening, the Pioneering Caribbean Women Jurists, you deliver somebody's delivering the feature speech of that, Her Excellency, the President. That's at tonight, this evening, 8:30 p.m. And we here at WESN will cover those proceedings. We'll carry those proceedings.
Wonderful. And yes, Andy, and in addition to Her Excellency, who's our featured speaker at our virtual awards ceremony, we have remarks from Dr. Carla Bonnet, newly installed Secretary General of CARICOM, Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, and of course, our President, the President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, will also bring remarks. Justice Winston Anderson, my co-chair, and I will deliver very, very brief remarks. But the focus, Andy, of the awards ceremony is to shine the spotlight on the work and the lives of these outstanding, I can't describe them as anything less than outstanding, extraordinary women.
Yeah, I think we have some photos of some of them that we could put up on the screen as we continue,
yes,
as we continue the discussion.
Sure.
Just as you talk briefly about some of those profiles that we will hear more about and see more about later this evening.
Yes. The one that I can start with, of course, and the one that most people will know best in Trinidad and Tobago would be Her Excellency herself, Paula Mae Weeks, who is featured. Her life story from the time she was a girl and to this special place that she now holds in our nation, head of state. And of course, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Visesa is also featured in the book, of former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. The Honorable Mia Motley is also featured. Her biography is in the book, and she will be honored this evening, Prime Minister of Barbados. And of course, we have throughout the length and breadth of all those who served in the judiciary, we have as well Justice Desiree Bernard, the first woman Chancellor of Guyana, first woman Chief Justice of Guyana, first woman to be appointed to the Caribbean Court of Justice. She certainly will be featured as part of the roll of honorees. So there are several distinguished women, Andy, that people know well, and I'm sure people who tune in will be so happy.
Now, let me take some guesses. Some guesses. What about Dame Nita Barrow in Barbados, and the former Prime Minister in Jamaica? They on the list?
No, Andy, to be on the list, one had to be a jurist. You had to have a foundation in law.
Right.
And that is why we have, for example, the Governor General of Grenada. She is not featured, but the former Governor General of Grenada. But we still honor all those women, and we trust that there will be opportunities, not just for the CCJ Academy for Law, but for other institutions to honor women. Because, Andy, one thing they discovered when we did this project is that a lot of women had felt that they had been forgotten, that nobody had noticed their good work. And I think that is the idea behind the Eminent Jurist series, which is CCJ Academy for Law has introduced. The idea being to remember, to recognize, and to honor various jurists from various fields, not just women jurists, but for example, 2 years ago, the Academy honored international law jurists. And as we go along, there will be so many others the Academy, I'm sure, will want to honor.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about some of the hurdles which still need to be crossed as we go forward? Somebody's saying that we have to turn the clock forward on women's rights.
That is something, Andy, that I do believe that we are making progress with. I do believe that it will still take a lot of effort, because the president of the court often quotes the quotation that many people know: culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yes.
So it's important that in our culture, as we grow up our children, and I speak here now as a mother and a grandmother, that it is important, especially when we grow up our sons, and I have 3, to say to them, respect women, respect the rights of women, treat women the way you see your father treat me. And I think that is a key message that we must get out. So it isn't just a question of putting down laws, because yes, that is a good thing. That is where we must start. But it is important, Andy, that in every sphere, even especially in the home, that we teach the respect and the rights of women.
Yeah. How do you, so we were talking about women who otherwise may have made this list, and one of them, as you mentioned, the first female Governor General in Grenada, Dame Hilda Bynoe, right?
Yes, who didn't make the list because she wasn't the jurists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you see as some of the hurdles still to be crossed, generally speaking, for equality? What the phrase that people use, what is called gender equality, gender equity. What do you see as some of the hurdles still to be crossed for us to get over?
Well, Andy, I think that the book demonstrates the hurdles that many of these women crossed, and I believe the hurdles are the same today. Poverty. A lot of the women in the book, a lot of their lives, they spoke about the fact that they didn't have much. They didn't grow up very wealthy, but they had one thing in common. They grew up with family structure, a close family around them, and a family which realized that the way out of it was education. So if you ask me about the hurdles, educate, the whole idea of education of the girls, it's so key. And many of the stories document the importance of no matter what they face. Some had to leave school and take care of ailing parents, or perhaps take care of a family when a parent passed. But at the end, once the educational opportunity was there, the honoree was able to say, after that, once I received that education, I flourished.
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the hurdles that we still face today.
Right.
Lack of educational opportunities for some people, poverty, those sorts of social barriers, which still hamper the progress of women.
Even though there's a chapter in the story which says that there's a great lament in some quarters that women and girls, well, let's stay with girls, continue to outperform boys coming up. Mm-hmm.
I have no doubt that will continue to happen for a while. And then I think we will see a balancing off, Andy. And men find their way, you know. I have 3 sons, as I mentioned, yes. And men may not perform in certain fields, but all of a sudden, when they realize, but wait, I am a man and I have a family to take care of, as one person told me, they begin to find their way, you know, and society allows them to do that. With women now, we have so many, you know, social norms, barriers, things that stand in the way still of women flourishing as they should. So I think that we hope by this book and this project and today's award ceremony to shine the light on the things that women can do, to spotlight these remarkable 34 women who overcame all these barriers that we're speaking about and more, and became the best that they could be.
All right, we want to thank you very much, Madam Justice Maureen Rajnaudh-Lee, and again, we remind you that event takes place this evening from 8:30. You can watch it here on WESN. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andy. Andy, can I say too that it will be featured on UETV and all the Flow channels as well?
All right, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At 9 o'clock. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. All right, so let's take a quick look, beginner look around the region. Now, we go to Belize. Let the story speak for itself.
That is not my first trip to Dangriga. I've made quite a couple of trips into the Garifuna communities here in Belize, to as far down south as Punta Gorda. So, interestingly, one of my trips going to Punta Gorda is that I had to ride dory, crossing a river to get to Punta Gorda. So I have gone there quite a couple of times. And it is so because I am from the Garifuna communities in St. Vincent. My historical path has indicated that I am part and parcel of the people who would have come out of St. Vincent on that wonderful trip of my ancestors from Baliso to Rotten Island, and then to the other parts of Central America, including Honduras and Guatemala. So that I come to Belize and I visit my people who actually, they look very much like the people that we have back home. And when I come here, of course, I'm always touched with the reality of life, that here is a people who suffered long and hard by the hands of colonization, wherein that we have lost basically from our homeland a people a language, a culture. And I want to make sure when I come here, I can rekindle that relationship with my people, of course.
I represent a constituency in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, South Central Windward. And there's a particular village with an extremely rich Garifuna history. And that is the village of Greggs. And every year we celebrate March 14th, basically to commemorate the excellent work that the Paramount Chief, His Excellency Joseph Chatioué, and you know the name very well here. And it just shows the connectivity. From the time I mentioned the name, you know exactly who I'm speaking about. So we witness each year persons from Belize will come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines during that period. And I had the opportunity to meet several persons from Dangriga before. But actually going to Dangriga and spending a day.
Was it your first time?
My very first time in Dangriga, not my first time in Belize. But to spend an entire day there speaking to different leaders in the communities, seeing the museum, dancing the puntarak,
Eating the hodot?
eating the hodot, visiting the primary school, speaking to Roy and the rest of his team. It was really a very rich cultural experience.
What is that story there? A group of Vincentian politicians, the Deputy Prime Minister among them, going to Belize, talking about the history of the movement of a group of people, an ethnic group in St. Vincent who were sent off to Belize. They call them the Garifuna. And that story takes us up to the time we need to take a break. There's news 7 o'clock. On the other side, we continue with our focus on International Women's Day today.
Bias. 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 The action of supporting or opposing a particular person or thing in an unfair way because of allowing personal opinion to influence your judgment. Break the bias. 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 Break the bias.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Burning questions, urgent topics, welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow is this year's theme for International Women's Day. Today, we celebrate the achievements and contributions of women and girls in different spheres. The campaign theme is Break the Bias. It intends to promote a gender equal world which is free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination. A world that is diverse, equitable, and inclusive, and where difference is valued and celebrated. Happy International Women's Day from the management and staff at WESN Content Capital.
Delisa Blizzard is a physical education and sports officer at the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, and Latoya Thompson-Jacob is a sport development associate at the this very same ministry, the Ministry of Sport and Community Development. They're joining us now to talk about something they call 2022 Pink Rain Campaign and the Girls Run TT Challenge. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Great morning, great morning. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here as we resume the discussions on the program this morning in conjunction with, or in recognition of today being International Women's Day. And this program is about that, right? You want to go first, Delisa?
Sure. Happy International Women's Day to all women, Latoya and Kiwiz. Pink Rain Campaign is an initiative that promotes physical activity and sport to women and girls in Trinidad and Tobago. This is a campaign that was started in 2019. It launched it relaunched in 2021, and it took off from there. We are doing it for a second year. We're excited to get women and girls, just to get them active.
All right, so Latoya, talk a little bit about what it entails, this Pink Run, Girls Run TT.
Pink Green. Yes, this says Girls Run is not just about running. You can walk as well. It's 83 miles. We last year, basically, we covered Trinidad. It's magnificent around the Savannah. And this year, we're going to do Tobago. You have to look up Tobago as well. So 7 medals that you're going to get. 83 miles we're going to cover. It's going to start from the 1st of August, because everybody 83 miles, that's a lot. But it's from April 1st to August 31st. And you have all time to get it done. And it can be done. Starting from girls age 12 all the way up. And for today being International Women's Day, we are launching today until August 16th. Get yourself registered. Yeah, so
yes,
good ladies.
You said 83 miles?
83 miles.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
last year was 70 miles, and they covered the Magnificent Seven, and the medal reflected that. So this year, we are going to Tobago, and the medal is a 3-piece medal. So you have to complete all 83 miles in order to get such medal.
And how is that done? I mean, over a period of...
You can run, you can walk, go outside, go on a treadmill. You can do it however you feel comfortable doing it. It isn't that you do all in one go. You have until the 31st of August, which is Independence Day. You have until then to complete all 83 miles. It doesn't mean that you limit yourself to just the 83. You can go beyond that. But to be able to earn a medal, you have to do all 83 miles. And that is the coverage of Tobago. So that is why it's 83 miles.
So you mean from let's say, from Crown Point to Castara and something like that, right?
Yes. You have to do all 83, all.
So Latoya, how do you all? So you're all in charge of that, both of you. What are your specific roles in terms of from start to finish?
Our role is basically to do the promotion, to get involved, because I am involved as well. It's not limited because it says girls. Yeah, we partnered with Bafa Sports. So basically, once you register through the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, that's mscd.gov.tt, you get your application form there, because we are doing, with government actually, we are the ministry, we are sponsoring 400 girls/women. So from today until the 16th, until 4 p.m., we are taking in applications and of course fill it out. And we will announce on the 29th those girls who's going to be taking, girls/women, all in one, who will be taking part. And through Bafa Sports, there is an app that you can use to actually measure your
mileage
distance. So you can get that as well.
Yeah. So as you're saying, Delisa, you can run, you can walk, you can skip, you can jump, and
as long as you complete the 83 miles.
Yes.
What was the nature of that challenge?
Okay, so when we partnered with Bafa Sports, this was at the start. What we planned was for it to be in-person race where we sponsored women to do road races. But when the pandemic hit, we made a shift to virtual races, and through Bafa Sports, that was accomplished. So we continue on that trend since COVID decided to stick around a little longer than we needed it. So it has continued, and it will go to that. It will continue on that virtual train to complete this challenge.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about what your job titles here. Let's stay with you since you're talking. Physical education and sports officer. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes.
That used to be a big thing. So when I was in primary school. And
okay, so I'm responsible for dealing with the general public, national governing bodies. We deal with a number of things. Our main goal and focus is to ensure that sport is island-wide, that everybody can take part in some sort of activity. And this initiative ensures that women and girls, because we know that, we have a disparity with women and girls participating in sport. And it's not just sport. It doesn't mean that you have to go and become a professional athlete. No, we just want, women and girls to take part in activities that keep them physically fit. We have to get down the NCDs and all of these things that plague women and girls. So this is part of that.
And you're saying that physical activity is critical and significant in doing that.
Of course, especially since we have been home for a little while. Most of us, if not all, have been in the house because we weren't allowed to go outside and get some fresh air other than in your own backyard. So we're encouraging people to come out now and get physically active. Go to the gym, get on a treadmill, go run around your local savannah. Simply get active.
Yeah. And what enables one to become a physical education and sports officer?
Well, I actually went to Cuba and studied for this position. So that is, you can once you are capable enough of doing the job, and it's a heavy job for us, but we get through it. I have people like Latoya helping me. So, yeah.
Let's hear a little bit about your story, Latoya Thompson-Jacob.
Yes, so a sports development associate, what we basically do will go into the communities on the ground level to get sporting bodies, clubs, individuals, persons who are interested, to assist them by helping them get registration, grant funding, guiding them in terms of how to do their constitution, because anybody could have a club as if the club is in order, So those kind of things, that's what we'll do. We'll engage, everybody who is interested in sports. And I like the fact that sport is not just for the elite, any activity. Correct. And with Pink Rain, it's not just this run. We have different pillars as well, where, Correct. We have conversations with women. So to show that, you don't stop. There's not a stop, because I wouldn't say what my age is, but just have to keep active. Yeah, you just have to keep moving. And I'm not in a competitive nature, but just Correct. To keep the body moving. Well, your health is your wealth. So.
Keep your body healthy.
No, you couldn't be you don't look more than 18.
Thank you, but it's more than that.
So then you pursued this career as well as a sports, and a long time they used to call it a physical education instructor and so on. So you pursue that path as well.
Besides working in the ministry, I am also a karateka as well. So, these things speak to me. Any form of activity is good.
She's an athlete. I'm a coach.
Yes. So outside of this, you do coaching, Delisa?
Yes. I coach a club at La Jolla, Trident Aquatics, for swimming.
So that's you're a swim coach?
Yes.
You think
I'm also a swim coach.
Yeah. You think swimming sort of has lost its luster in Trinidad and Tobago? There was a period when
I wouldn't say that it lost its luster.
Yeah.
It's just the competitive side can be a little bit difficult for some. So it is all about you putting your mind and your heart and soul into pursuing this if that is what you want.
Yeah, but there was a period when it was sort of higher on the totem pole of activities that people got involved in.
You find a lot of people now apparently don't know how to swim.
Yeah, don't know how
for
to.
a Caribbean, for an island, people who don't know how to swim, that's questionable.
Yeah, and
there are a lot of people that don't know how to swim, but swimming is one of those activities where you can get into it, exercises every muscle in your body. It is one of those that you can just simply do that, and it will tone all the muscles that's in your body.
Yeah, and there was a time when we had illustrious swimmers, and for some reason I tend to only remember the females. There was this famous lady named Laura Denise, and then Siobhan Cropper. You think young people know about people like that now?
I do not think so. They know all the international names now, but local, some might, those who are in the competitive circuit, but ordinarily, they don't.
Yeah. Latoya, so you live what you do, and you work out a lot. You get in there in the gym and so on.
Not necessarily the gym. The fact that we could not have gone out to the gym. You make do with your spaces, because I remember for the challenge last year, we couldn't go anywhere, but I could tell you how much steps it is in my yard because I was pacing. So you use your yard space. If you have space in your house, you can run around in your house, and YouTube is a lot of fun. Yeah, so those were my YouTube and the government road.
Yeah,
I love the road.
Yeah, and you think that we suffered, both of you, you think we have suffered because of that period when more people were inclined to remain indoors, and we didn't, how do you work through that? Somebody who's perpetually active and you want to stay active. How do you work through dealing with those kinds of prohibitions, as it were? Let's start with you, Latoya.
You work with the space you have, because as I mentioned, my couch, you can do dips. You be creative, literally. If there are stairs in your house, use that. If it is a half space living room, but as a mind thing, you have to condition, because a lot of people, they feel restricted because, they're accustomed going out. The distance is there, but it's a discipline. If it is something that you put your mind to, especially if you are an athlete, you will make do with the space you have until better. So for me, the living room, as I mentioned, I can tell you how much steps it is in my yard to the road and back, and how much times I would have gone up and down just to get the match. So it's a discipline. You work with the space you have.
Yeah.
But now you have the freedom to go outside, so there's no limit there.
So a lot of people would have breathed some heavy sighs of relief in the last couple of days, Delisa, right?
Correct.
So people could get
correct, because now they're allowed to go back out in small groups, and they can have fun with it. For example, with this program, this Girls Run TT, there are special prizes. First to hit 20 miles, first to hit 83 miles, most improved, largest team, most engaged on social media, oldest participant, youngest to complete. So people have incentive to complete this race.
Yeah, and what's the normal level of expectation about it, and the level of excitement that this event brings?
Well, what we're hoping for is that the 400 that we intend to sponsor actually take us up on the sponsorship. Because last year we would have sponsored 371, if I'm not mistaken, Latoya. Yeah. And not everybody took the opportunity to take part in the race.
Yeah.
So this year, what we're hoping for is that all 400 will participate.
So you're looking at that's the sort of projected number. The participation.
Yes, that is what we're looking forward to. We were in the 300s last year, so we're taking it up a notch this year.
Yeah, and so specifically, what are some of your responsibilities with that, Latoya?
Well, that's all.
Responsibility where that is concerned. Because between the 8th and the 16th, we have all the registrants will come through. So now we will have to, go through, because you have some questions that you need to answer while you're there on the Google form. And then now we will have to help get those numbers in so that we can have an announcement of who actually got through on the 29th so that the race can start on the 1st. And of course, I'll be involved as well. I did it last year, I'm going to do it again this year.
Yeah, Lisa, you wanted to add to that?
I shall support you, Latoya. I will support you. I'm not sure if I'll be doing the race, but I'll be on the sidelines supporting as usual.
How do you all, so you all, two of the most prominent, the key figures in this initiative, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh. I am the one that has spearheaded this program for this year. Last year it was not me.
It didn't happen last year.
Last year I did not spearhead it, but this year I am. So that is my main role and function in this with the Pink Rain campaign, is to make sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible. Because Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So we're trying to see how best we can smoothen it out and make sure that everybody enjoys themselves with this run. The program has other components to it. We're going to make sure that, we get those up and running so that people can see what the ministry has to offer, what we have going on. They can take part. We have a life skills workshop for young women that is gonna come off. So we have the conversations where you get to talk to athletes and administrators and women who hold position in sports, whether it be the president of a NGB, they're an athlete, they're a parent. We're gonna talk to them and get their points of view on how they would have gone through the channels. Let young women and girls see that it's not only just about being an athlete.
Yeah, it's about keeping fit. It's about exercising your.
Yeah.
You have the last word, Latoya. Whatever you want to make that to be.
Okay. Outside of registering on the ministry's website, we could also be found on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is Sport and ComDev TT, and on Facebook it is Sport ComDev TT. So we are on the social media platforms when you guys start, and I do hope we have lots of engagement. It is going to be fun. You make it fun, and don't look at it as 83 miles. It
sounds large when you put 83 miles. Just think of how you're going to break it up. It's going to get smaller.
All right. Our thanks to both of you, Delisa Blizzard and Latoya Thompson Jacob. Well, all the best for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. All right, well, we ask you to watch this now. This is powerful stuff, again, on the theme of today's program, International Women's Day. Just take a look.
This year, in 2022, the theme of International Women's Day is Break the Bias. What does bias mean? Well, bias is where an idea is preferred to another, and another idea doesn't get a fair chance. Gender bias is where someone of a different gender is treated unfairly. So, this year, people of all genders are being encouraged to #break the bias and make sure that people know when others are not being given the same opportunities.
Bias is a wall. Every word is a brick. Saliva is cement hardening the way that we think about gender or a group of people. A wall that separates us from the fact that we are all equal. An empowered girl is a hurricane that can paint the world in sunsets. Bias is a wall that tries to stop her, but her hurricane isn't done yet. An empowered girl can lead the world into change, and she can guide us into a place that's new. This is a poem to you. Let's break the bias.
A world free of bias means that we can reach the higher levels of a diverse, equal world by connecting all those wires. Wires that have an electric current running through them allows us to be those positively charged particles. And we, together, are going to break the bias so that we forever will no longer fear fighting for better. There is a bias to be broken. My dream of an equal world is what I have awoken from, and I know that it's something that can become true. As the world is a living photograph, saturated with diversity and hues. I march and I strive, with my head held high as a woman, and us women will not be pinned down nor weighed down by anything, no matter how hard that anything tries. We all have different stories. We take each day as it comes, by painting the picture, by writing the literature, to be shared with the world. We will choose to challenge, and we will break the bias, and find strength and pump our tires and drive down the open road by taking the steering wheel. We'll rise up from our heels until it is love, confidence and everything positive that we feel, and until our stories are revealed to the world. Because this is us. We're born to be leaders and born to be great. So let's continue to create our stories in a world where we no longer fear fighting for better.
And that's our broadcast on this day, Tuesday, March 8, 2022, International Women's Day. We thank you for watching. We tell you, you can stay with us here always on AM Prime at WESNCC. You could send your emails to amprime@wesncc.com, and you could keep in touch with us on all the social media platforms. We make way now for news at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Messrs. Shah and Small. But for now, I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We see you tomorrow.